Good afternoon, Robert Scribbler. It is October 24th, 2018. Thank you for joining me for another climate change and clean energy video blog. For this segment, what I am going to do is provide you with an update on the present conditions as it relates to what remains of Hurricane Willa, which made landfall about 15 hours ago as a Category 3 hurricane along the central coast of Mexico to the north of Guadalajara, and then rapidly tracked inland, dumping heavy rains over Mexico and lashing the region with strong winds and hurricane conditions. At present, what remains of Willa is over the northeastern section of Mexico and is tracking toward southern Texas. And it's worth noting that the storm itself is in the process of losing its tropical characteristics, and those tropical characteristics of which are likely to dissipate, according to the National Hurricane Center, over the next few hours. That said, the moisture and clouds associated with Willa are transitioning into a trough that has persisted over Texas and the Gulf Coast region of the U.S. for some time now. And this moisture is expected to dump heavy rains over Texas over the next day or so, perhaps providing as much as 4 inches of additional rainfall for Texas, for an already flooded Texas, and then by the weekend to transition across the southeastern U.S. toward the Atlantic, where it will tap much warmer than normal waters off the U.S. East Coast and potentially turn into a nor'easter by this weekend, again lashing the eastern U.S. with heavy rains and strong winds. So the story of Willa, even though it is no longer a hurricane and is in the process of losing its tropical characteristics over land and over desert and over the mountains of Mexico, is going to continue for the coming days as a major weather event, and it's something that we need to watch. It's worth pointing out that weather forecasters are predicting that Willa will transition into a nor'easter after dumping very heavy rains over Texas. And just to provide a bit of a context for you, it's worth noting that Texas over the past 2 weeks has received in the range of 8 to 10 to 15 to, in some cases, as high as 20 inches or more of rainfall. Now, Willa's rains will add on top of the drenching that Texas is already receiving. I'm just going to go ahead, since we have some time, and pull up the National Weather Service radar so we can see where the rains are coming down heavily at this time as Willa feeds into a persistent rainfall pattern over Texas. And as you can see in the present National Weather Service radar mosaic, that heavy rains are funneling in from Mexico and into central Texas, as well as over the already hard hit regions that have received such heavy rains over the past couple of weeks. Now, as I said before, these rains are expected to shift eastward, and in the GFS model, I'm just going to go ahead and track this back a bit. So the rains associated with Willa the remnants of Willa getting pulled up into the rainy pattern over Texas is expected to result in heavy rains over Texas and over the Gulf Coast states, transitioning to the southeast by Friday as a coastal low develops and becomes a nor'easter into Saturday, dumping heavy precipitation over parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast on Saturday and into Sunday. So again, the story of Willa is not over, despite the fact that it is losing its tropical cyclone characteristics. The moisture associated with Willa and the low pressure associated with Willa will continue to affect the U.S. over the next few days. And as we have tended to see in storms of this kind over recent weeks, this storm system is feeding off of a very high level of atmospheric moisture over Texas, as well as much warmer than normal sea surface temperatures over the Gulf of Mexico and over off the U.S. East Coast. And these high moisture levels are something that we would expect as the Earth warms. As with each degree Celsius of warming, the moisture levels in the Earth atmosphere overall increase by about 7%. But because the atmosphere is not even in its moisture loading, you tend to get a higher concentration in the more extreme events. And this is a signature of human-caused climate change. In addition, the warmer than normal waters in the Gulf of Mexico in the range of 2 degrees Celsius, according to the Earth Null School Monitor, basically tracking between about 1 and 2 degrees Celsius above normal in the Gulf of Mexico and 1 and 5 degrees Celsius above normal off the U.S. East Coast, will help to provide some energy, some convective energy, and additional moisture to this storm system as it is expected to develop over the coming days. So yet another extreme weather event in the form of a powerful hurricane in the eastern Pacific impacting land and cycling in its moisture into an already extreme pattern over the U.S. Thank you for joining me, and I'll be chatting with you soon.